Ok? Og hyggelig at det er igjen så mange klokka 4. Jeg trodde alle var gått hjem, men til barna. Jan Aril Sigvardsen. I think I'll switch to English since we're taping it. I work as the consulting manager in Basefarm, and I've been working as a manager since 2004. I have a technical background, so I wrote the second world's 3D game in Java back in 2000. And all after that, I've been working very close with architects. And I've always been working with new things and getting really bleeding edge things into the production line. And that's kind of my background. So today, I'm not going to talk specifically deep technical about OpenShift because there are other people here that have done that excellently today. I'm an engineer, I'm colorblind, so some of my slides are going to look like this. I'm not a graphical engineer. So this is the background, and I mean, I was there when the mainframe was back in the 80s and 90s, and then the Intel world started to take over. And it was had nothing to do with quality, really. It had to do with the speed of innovation, more releases, and all those things. And over the past 15, 20 years, we've seen a lot of standardization. We have new VMware versions. We have new versions of everything. But it hasn't really been a huge digital transformation. And, well, from our perspective, now it's happening again. The public cloud era is finally starting to kick in, and we are again being challenged to innovate more, put more things in production, and really keep up with competition. What I find particularly cool is that it's actually the developers that is driving this new innovation right now. And it was also like that back in the 2000s when the developers started to experiment with PHP, and they made their first CMS and publishing systems. And suddenly they had created market leaders in the media segment. And so now it's the time to do this again. So kind of what I'm going to talk about, how can you keep up with all this compliance? We still have our legacy. Many work for companies that have maybe 10 or 20 years old legacy, and that legacy is actually financing what we're now trying to do and move forward. So it's important to keep that. So we still need the compliance, but we still need to be innovative and move things forward in a speedy way. So this is a bit the agenda. Bit of driving innovation and still not break all the compliance. Compliance can be many things. It can be performance. It can be some ISO standard. Or it can be cost control. It can be a physical data center. It can be that your data has to reside in some certain place. There's a lot of things that comes with compliance. And the funny thing with the compliance is that no matter how much you try to jump over it or surpass it, it will come back sometime in the process and hit you in the head, which is very frustrating. I'm going to talk a bit about DevOps. Use OpenShift as an example. And even just a little bit about how Basefarm can help you move forward. So this is innovation curve. Pretty much like dating, really. You start up with dating and have all this fun, and comes down and get married, and it's straightforward. All right. Friend told me that. Nothing to do with my marriage, of course. Well, point being, this is the innovation curve for basically everything. You have to try a lot of things. You have to have a lot of iterations, try different types of technology. And at some point, you start putting mission-critical workload on it. And not only the workload, but it actually starts driving your business, because as a successful developer, you attract an attractive customer base, and suddenly you're a victim of your own success, and you're starting to get stuck in operational things. And I mean, when you are in an operational phase, it's kind of like running a hospital. Nothing wrong with running a hospital, but there's always sick people. And when you are in operations and you're a victim of your own success, there will always be something wrong somewhere. Just has to do with volume. So, and that's when you as a developer really want this to go somewhere else so you can focus on your core business. Now, my point is, along this journey, at some point there's going to be a certain set of compliance rules, and usually, traditionally, it hits around in the middle, about the last week before you go into production, and suddenly all these standards come up that you have to comply with, that you may not have had time or had time to think about earlier. So compliance should be fun. I see some of you are looking a bit like Mr. B now, like motivating. Really, compliance features are fun. Compliance is not. Well, point being, if you actually manage to put a bit of compliance planning into your development process, you actually end up being more agile. Your team gets less frustrated. When they are less frustrated, they produce more. Well, should give you peace of mind in operations, of course, that's a no-brainer, but eventually people that produce more, when you have things more agile and more in progression, you lower the cost and you go faster to the market. And done right, it should actually contribute to building your business. Being a developer for 15 years, sometimes it didn't really feel like that. Compliance felt a bit more like this. Sometimes it feels like it's holding us back. Like you have to do these things first before you can even write one line of code. It's not how it should be if you're doing it right. I have tried to just jump, screw compliance. Let's just do it when it's necessary. That's it. I was searching for a picture, and I wrote spissrotgang, which is gauntlet, I think, in English. Whenever you jump over compliance, it can be some regulatory regarding security, or it can be that the customer has certain compliance requirements. It ends up hitting you in the head. So one of these guys could be your security officer because you did things a bit too rushy. One of them could be your boss, could be your team that is angry at you because you didn't plan well enough for this to happen, and now they look bad. And in the middle, it's actually your wife, because now we have to spend 3 months to fix all these things, and you can't come home for 3 months. So jumping obstacles to get things in production. I mean, it's all the dreams to create something that really pulls us forward and is unique to your business and lets you beat competition. But breaking these compliance things, it usually comes back and it hits us in the head. So how do we cope with this? How do we keep innovative and still let just this compliance be fixed? Now, this is what we are thinking about. This, of course, correlates a bit with OpenShift, but point being, on the top you have your agile development process. You create your market leader. You are a happy team. You do the sprints and you focus on features and you focus what is separating you from your competition. Then what we are trying to do is automating as much as possible of the compliance rules. And it could be the good old performance metrics. I mean, we've been doing that for a long time. But it could also be resilience testing. You could let Chaos Monkey go through and try to rip apart all your code and all your Amazon infrastructure and all your infrastructure before you do that major release for this insurance company, for instance. It could also be something regarding where your data resides. We're starting to use more and more public clouds, more hybrids. It would be nice to actually be compliant that the data that has to stay in Norway actually are stored in Norway. There, it's possible to check that as part of the deployment process. Some public companies, they have very strict budgets, and we are going into an area now where everything is volume-based services, meaning you pay for what you consume. And so there are, what we're trying to do is to deploy cost analytics where we could actually tell the clients that you are about to go above budget, and if you do not change your behavior on how you're consuming this service, you will go above your budget 2 weeks from now. The cool part is to actually make this a part of the development process, so you don't have to add all this functionality the last week or 3 months or just before you go into production, or do it after you go to production and end up doing these expensive transformation projects. What we also feel is relevant, this is to actually plug all these compliance checks into a monitoring tool, so we could actually also monitor if we are compliant under the way. And then it's not only a check you do when you're actually putting it into production. So how to do this? I mean, you buy a package and then all the automation is ready and everything is orchestrated. It's a bit like pulling your data center into the cloud. It just works. Not exactly. There's a bit more to it than that. So I was thinking of talking a bit about DevOps. So that's we use this team to create this automation actually. For many people, or for some people, DevOps is being agile, or DevOps is just not caring about ops, or DevOps is you having a platform that lets the developers not interfere with the operational team. And there are many perspectives on what DevOps is. However, what our take on DevOps is that it's one team that will sit together, then they have a common vision, and they will have complete trust to each other. And by having that trust, they will share the same tools, they will have access to the same ESA code, and they will actually work together to create better things. And to give an example, I mean, in the beginning phase, we are all about features. It's important because we have to do our proof of concepts, so we get budget to do more innovation. Now, if you put an ops guy in this dev team and they're true DevOps, maybe he will tell you that, well, this maybe not be important right now, but when we get down here, we're gonna have like 99.9999 requirements. Or since we're developing this for a financial institution, we have to have our compliance right. Yes. So we should already here start thinking about our code being cloud native, so it could actually be deployed across availability zones. Or we should already here plan for some sort of compliance in terms of auditing. May not be important here, but if you auto scale, if you start auto scaling an environment and everything is dynamic and everything kind of floats, how do you know exactly how your architecture were 1 year ago? And your customer asks, I need to know exactly what happened the 16th of February last year. It may not be important in this phase at all, and in most it's not. But by thinking a bit about these things already here, it will steer you into certain code standards. Maybe if you're thinking in a multi-cloud environment, you will start using Terraform instead of PowerShell, because then you have one ISC tool to be able to cover more clouds. So really, it's just about having the dev and the ops guys sitting together, planning, so we don't get this expensive transition and transformation projects in the middle of the journey. And again, I think you will end up with a much more happy team. So I talk with the IT operations managers that will say that we are DevOps, and they will say, yeah, well, okay, how are you DevOps? Well, the developers, they can put things directly in production, and we don't have to do anything. Well, so where's interaction? You guys are not DevOps. You're actually in that corner, and what you are doing is that you're keeping away and you're not engaging in the important topics that the developers will worry about. And at the same time, I have a lot of speaks with the chief developers that say we are DevOps, and actually, well, where is your ops guy in your team? No, we don't need them. We don't need ops. Okay, so you're not DevOps. You're just simply devs. So you're still in this phase. And in the next phase, when you are gonna take your most brilliant people going from cloud and move it onto big data or move it onto IoT, they're being stuck and victims of their own success and having to maintain an old code base and things that actually should be done in operations instead. So getting ops people and dev people working together actually makes a lot of sense. You can steer in on the right technology sooner. And you won't have to go that gauntlet. Now, Basefarm is, I believe we are one of the first to have an OpenShift total in Norway at least. And there are alternatives to OpenShift. However, we felt it was a good alternative because it comes with a lot ready-made. And for our perspective, it's automation for containers, and the orchestrations is more or less there. Wouldn't say it's like a DevOps in a package, but it certainly allows you to start moving along, working in a more DevOps-like way. And you can solve some of that. You can automate a lot of that compliance that maybe today is very manual work. So we installed a hotel. We made a kind of a hotel where you pay as you go, just like Amazon or Azure. And in addition, we have this also for dedicated solutions for clients that require that in terms of because of security or other reasons. So we are a bit working with PCI DSS customers. Now working in a more DevOps-like way, when you have a team that is very diverse, we start by creating a bit of common ground. And this is one way of doing it. This is pretty easy, understandable English. We can all agree that it's important to build and maintain a safe network. It's important to protect the card owner's data. And this is kind of where we start with these teams. And from there, we move on to make go a bit more into the details, and then we start making the code together. And once we have deployed this, we can automate it, we can monitor it, and we can also implement the same procedure for other clients if this certain client allows us to reuse the code. So the upper part is a bit more the traditional chain of deployment. Now, what we do with OpenShift, that we add these compliance checkpoints, and it could be connected to libraries. It can be connected to port scans, which has to be in PCI DSS. There's a lot of compliance in terms of security, and we can automate that and monitor it. That is actually been done. So from the Basefarm perspective, we work with our clients to accommodate the whole journey. Of course, our business is it's mission critical managed services. However, mission critical means something here on this side, and it can be something very different on the right side. Here it could be speed, it could be response times to be able to show this book, to be able to finance them. And all the way onto the right side, we are more onto the boring 99.999. The funny thing with innovation is that eventually it all becomes commodity, and it has to move down this chain. And the sooner you are able to identify what's gonna hit you in the head in terms of compliance, the easier this path is going to be. So from our perspective, to be able to accommodate this, we need some platforms, we need some clouds, we need some data centers, and then we have the OpenShift hotel that we set up together with Red Hat. This is a bit our journey. We do a lot of brainstorming with our clients. We do this in again a DevOps way, and we sit together with the development teams to try to do the automation, to try to identify what will come up 1 year from now that we probably should maybe not fix right now, but that we should plan for or report to or put into next year's budget. So a lot of this, and including us, I mean, we have had a model since we've been standardized for many years. Customers bring the code and we do the rest. Now, when you're building innovation, you're building something new, you are most likely connecting those technical features so close to your business benefits that you're not willing to outsource them at once. You will keep that in your organization at least until you're going to go on to the next wave. So what we try to do to facilitate services to help with that, we will put our ops people again together with the ops people at the client site, and we will start look at the more traditional items together and see, okay, how should we do monitoring 1 year ahead? How can we help you with code standards to make sure that you avoid that expensive transition? How should we actually do identity access management so we don't have to change everything when you're going to outsource 3 years from now? And again, the earlier we identify this, easier it is to connect incident management from 24/7 team. Eventually, we're going to get there. And in the end, go down to platform ops, which is where most of the managed providers are today on their traditional model. I'm jumping a bit because I'm going to keep it short because it's the last session and I bet you're eager to get home. So just some hints to get started. Choose your team. Choose your team wisely. Don't choose only developer and certainly not only ops people. Choose strong people from both sides. The reason why you do that is because you will try to identify all the compliance you need over a certain lifespan, and then you need different people with different area of expertise. Not only the developers guy and not only the ops guys. Once you do that, of course, all the regular things, market, competence, stakeholders, all that. And then you can get onto the tools and processes and technology. And then you just do it. Again, and it also correlates with what's happening in the public eye right now. The more you automate, the fewer, the more you automate, the more you're going to get done. And well, there's not everything that can be automated, but a lot of those things that comes with compliance that could be either 0 or 1. It's a perfect candidate for automating. And that's what we would like to help our clients with. So that's what I had today. Thank you. Are there any questions? No questions.
Okay, thank you.